Why is saying we should look after our environment radical? Why is saying that we should have healthcare radical? Why is saying that children should not go hungry radical? That's kind of where my frustration lies. It's just, what are we doing?
That's Kaya Lewis. She tried to vote in last year's election, but she couldn't. Her absentee ballot from South Dakota mysteriously arrived in the mail a few days after Election Day. According to a recent poll, just 15% of Americans aged 18 to 29 think the country is headed in the right direction. Can you kind of see where they're coming from? Fortunately for us, Kaya hasn't given up yet. In addition to working 3 jobs, she also runs Kaya's Kitchen, a community-based nonprofit that delivers healthy, delicious meals to people who need them. This week, we're talking about food security, voter suppression, and the Princess and the Frog here on What is America? Week 5, and I'm sneakily back in San Francisco. I'm coming to you from the laundry room of our place in the Mission. I flew back for a week to spend time with Brian and see some friends. And what a week it's been. I made pottery with some fellow singers from the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. I met up for happy hour with folks from my improv class. Brian and I even found time to do some gardening right out there. We were worried that the peonies were getting cooked up in the sun, so we transplanted them to a shadier spot. But the daylilies are loving life. They're just popping up, and the tomato starts are looking vivacious. So lots to be excited about. Hi, I'm John, and this is What is America? For the next year, I'm going to drive all over the country and talk to people about their lives. Together, we're going to figure out the new story of America, who we are, what we value, and what we're building toward as a nation. This week, I'm sharing one final conversation from Memphis. Next week, I'm off to Gainesville, Florida. To learn more about our itinerary and stay connected, visit our website, whatisamericapodcast.com. Kaya Lewis is, depending on your frame of mind, the kind of person who could inspire the heck out of you or make you feel completely inadequate, or both. She's 24 years old, she's working 3 jobs, and in her copious free time, she runs Kaya's Kitchen, a community-based nonprofit that delivers healthy, delicious meals to people who need them. There is so much to say about Kaya. She's a talented artist, she's building a beautiful life in Midtown Memphis with her girlfriend. But, if I'm honest, there's one reason in particular I knew I wanted to have this conversation. It has to do with how I was feeling back in November and December after the election. I actually spoke about it in the first episode of the podcast. Let's roll the tape. You know, sometimes in my darker moments, I think, here I am, one person in 330 million, and nothing I do is ever going to change America. The more people I talk to on this journey, the more I realize I'm not the only one who is feeling that way. And it's not actually a conservative thing or a liberal thing. According to a recent average of polls from Real Clear Polling, over half of us, regardless of our politics, think America is headed in the wrong direction. Among those aged 18 to 29, like Kaya, just 15% think America is on the right track. That's hard. How do you wake up every day in a country you think is headed in the wrong direction? What should you do if you think America is getting worse, not better? For many of us, and this was definitely me back in November and December, the answer is to check out. I just felt like the situation was so big and so hopeless, and nothing I did was ever going to fix it. So I spent a lot of time on my phone. I thought about other things. I hoped in a general way that the situation would improve. That's why I think Kaya is so cool. Last year, she was feeling much the same way I was. You'll hear her talk about it in the interview. And then, one day, she did something about it. It wasn't huge. For goodness sake, she's 24 years old. She's working 3 jobs. But it was something. On August 17th, she posted on her Instagram that she would be preparing and delivering fresh, healthy meals to people who needed them. Need some food? She said. Hit me up. No questions asked. She also let her followers know that she'd be accepting volunteer help, monetary donations, and food donations. And that's how Kaya's Kitchen was born. Today, they've raised nearly $4,000 and delivered hundreds of meals to people who need them. When I asked Kaya about the philosophy behind Kaya's kitchen, her answer was instantaneous. Everybody deserves healthy, delicious food. Period. If you'd like to support the great work that Kaya is doing, I've dropped a link to her GoFundMe down in the show notes below. But also, I hope you and I can take a page out of Kaya's book. Ask yourself, if you were going to do something today to make America a little bit better, something small, what would it be? I hope you enjoy this week's interview.
Hi, I'm Kaya. I live in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm 24, also kind of figuring out what is going on in my life and career. And now we're here on this podcast, so.
Right on. Thank you. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I feel good. I feel hungry, but I feel good.
After this, I think it's breakfast time.
I think so too.
I haven't eaten either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have 3 jobs.
Yes.
Can you tell me about your 3 jobs?
Yes, I can. So I coach gymnastics. I've done that for the last year. But officially my last day will be May 24th. So we will have 2 jobs instead of 3.
Okay.
But yeah, so I started doing that after teaching elementary, and I really, really like working with kids, but like the classroom setting was not.
Oh, yeah.
It was not for me. And I used to coach in high school. I did competitive gymnastics in high school. And so coaching was like a natural flow for me when I left the classroom. So I started coaching, and then actually one of the parents that I was coaching for, she kind of saw how I was interacting with the kids and then was like, do you need another job? And I was like, yes, I do, because I don't get paid that much. And so she brought me into the church that she works at, the Church of the River downtown. I can't remember.
Beautiful
if I told you that
church.
part.
Yeah.
Yes. It is a really beautiful building, and it's like right on the river. And so she said they were looking for a youth leader, a youth coordinator, which is not really my area at all. But I was like, I can teach a curriculum. I can work with kids. I can figure it out. I need a job. So I started doing that, and then I ended up really liking it. Like the group of kids that I work with right now, they're really cool. And it's older kids, because when I coach, it's ages 2 to 11 or 12, and mainly 2-year-olds. Like a lot of my roster is 2 and 7. And I was like, give me a break from the 2-year-olds. I love them, but they take a lot of energy. So my youth group is middle school, high school.
Okay.
So it was kind of nice to have the balance of ages. And then now I am training in the kitchen at Felicia Suzanne's. Yesterday was actually their grand opening. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not.
Yeah, their grand
But
opening.
Felicia Suzanne's has been open for years.
They were open for years, and then they closed for 3 years. And so this is their grand opening, because they have like a new location.
Okay.
The building is like the most beautiful restaurant I've ever seen. Like truly.
So Felicia Suzanne's used to do on Fridays 25-cent martinis. Did you ever hear
They
about
don't
that?
do them anymore.
Okay.
She told us, we walked through the menu, and she was like, we had to let those go. Like pretty much after COVID and prices going up for everything. But
a 25-cent martini was never
that's insane.
gonna make sense.
But
And yeah, it would get pretty messy on Fridays.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it.
I support you, Felicia Suzanne, for dropping those 25-cent martinis from the menu.
Right. So yeah, they had their big opening yesterday. And we've been kind of training for it the last month or two. It hasn't been too long. We've been doing kind of soft openings, quietly practicing, stuff like that.
So 3 jobs. How many hours a week do you think you work?
It depends. The other week I worked 67. Sometimes it's in the 50s. Jeez. It's always over 40, pretty much.
Yeah. So those are like 10 to 12-hour days every day.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that schedule?
It's not ideal. It's not ideal at all. So Monday through Wednesday, I'm coaching, and then no, that's a lie. Wait. Monday through Wednesday, I'm coaching. That is right. And then Thursday through Saturday, I'm at the restaurant, and then Sundays I'm at the church. And then sprinkle in like some work from home stuff here and there. So yeah, your girl's exhausted like all the time. Like all the time. So I have, Beyonce 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so somehow I get everything done and I'm where I need to be, but it is kind of crazy. And when I first, it's kind of like I ended up with the 3 jobs because I all needed them for different reasons. Like, of course I could quit any one of them today, but I had to, like, with gymnastics, I want to see the kids through recital. With the youth group, I just started. I feel like I'm just starting to, like, get the kids to open up with me. So that doesn't make sense to leave. And then the restaurant, that was such a cool opportunity. I'm like, of course I have to figure this out. And so on paper, I was like, I have time for everything. And then, like, 2 weeks in, I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, it's okay. It's not as bad as it sounds.
I mean, you're 24.
Right.
So if there's ever a time to have
Right.
3 jobs, it's when you're 24.
I guess so. So
Yeah.
I'm doing it. And then May will be my last month doing that. And I can kind of zero in and focus. So from there, I'll be more full-time at Felicia's and then still be with the church on Sundays. And then I'll have Mondays off. Oh my gosh. So that would be great. Because right now,
I'm cheering for you.
Yeah.
Why? Okay, so it seems like you're going in more of a food direction, but you're really good with kids. So why do you think you're so good with kids?
I'm like the kid whisperer.
Yeah.
Like, really?
But why?
Why? I feel like a large part of it is intentional. Like, I'm very intentional with how I speak with kids and work with kids because when we are adults, like, the things that we do and say to children are such pivotal things, like things that seem small and just like day to day. Those are things that they can be later having to unpack in therapy or later having to understand, like, why do I have this voice in my head telling me I'm not good? But it's because you had a teacher that was telling you you're not good. And so when I first became an elementary teacher, that was something I was very, very intentional about. And as a coach, that's something I'm very intentional about. Like, I do not raise my voice at the kids. I do not rush the kids. I do not tell them they're bad at anything. Like, I will always be patient with them. So even if I have moments of frustration, which I do, because I'm a person, and if you've ever had to have a classroom of 15 2-year-olds, your patience will be tested. But when I have those moments of like, I almost want to raise my voice, or I almost want to like show them that I'm annoyed, like, I really do have to like take a deep breath, and it's like, that's not for them to take on. Or like, if I came into coach and I had like the worst day and it happens, what do I look like bringing my bad day in and just like spewing it on them? And unfortunately, like, you see that a lot with adults. They just don't have that, like, let me, like, compose myself and, have that emotional regulation. But then we expect little kids to have emotional regulation and not throw temper tantrums and not yell or fuss or be loud. We want them to, like, sit still and be perfect all the time, but then we're yelling and fussing at them.
So you grew up in South Dakota? And what was that like?
Cold. It was very cold.
Okay.
One of the biggest reasons I moved is how cold it was, because it's -40. -40.
Is that where if you like throw a cup of hot water, it'll freeze before it hits the ground?
Probably. I never tried that, but I do know it's cold enough, like, you can't breathe sometimes. Like, you have to like wrap your mouth with a scarf, or it will like you literally feel like, ugh.
I didn't know there were places in the U.S. that were like that. Wow.
Because it's like cold, but then also it's like a flat prairie, so then the wind gets crazy. So it's -40 or 30 with the wind chill. It might be like -5 or something, and then the wind chill knocks it down.
What was it like growing up as a queer Black woman?
It was not the best. So I wasn't openly queer until college. So there's that. That didn't even seem like an option to me when I was younger.
Relatable.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people relate to that from different areas and for different reasons. And then being like one of the only Black people in my school, it was not fun. I dealt with a lot of like subversive racism, but also like flat in your face, like people calling me the N-word, wearing Confederate flags to school. Some of them had Nazi flags, calling names, saying my dad was a drug dealer. I would bring like Caribbean food for lunch, telling me that's nasty, making fun of my hair. Like I could go all day long being harassed by the police.
Jeez.
I could go all day long.
Jeez.
So, and then on top of that, I grew up in two very predominantly white sports, ballet and gymnastics. So it was like I never quite fit into.
I mean, part of me wants to ask, like, how'd you make it out? I mean, like, that's a terrible way to like frame that question.
Yeah.
But like, for me, growing up in Memphis, it was important to get out. So like, how did you feel about Dakota?
I love the nature of South Dakota. I love my family that's there. And there are some very beautiful, kind, understanding people. And I never felt so like strong about starting with that until I moved away, actually. Because before I'd be like, forget South Dakota and they're all racist and da da da. But then I moved away and I would hear people like the jokes of like, anybody really lives there, or like that place doesn't matter. But it's like, no, there are people that live there and it does matter. And most of the people that live there probably are good, you know? But with that, there is a lot of like closed-mindedness. It's very rural. So sometimes some of the like bad things I experienced probably wasn't even from a place of hate. It was like they literally didn't know better and they hadn't seen anything else, which is not an excuse. I will say that. But it's not a place that I ever felt truly welcomed or truly like embraced in the culture. And so I was very set on leaving, like absolutely. And when I was in high school, like, okay, this will paint a picture of my experience. I had great grades. Okay. I got a 31 on my ACT.
Wow.
I did really good. And so when I went to my school counselors and to my teachers and I said, hey, I want to leave. I want to go out of state. I want to go to LSU. I was told that I was overreaching. I was asked why I want to go to college in the first place.
Jesus.
I was told that I should aim lower and be more realistic.
God!
Mind you, the average, not to expose my high school, but the average ACT at my school was 17.
Jeez.
And I got a 31.
You were almost twice the average.
And I was still told that I could not.
So what voice in your life was saying, no, you can't?
Oh, my parents, definitely.
Okay.
Anything that I ever wanted to do, like my parents were like, yes, like you can. If anything, they would be like, I remember one time bringing home a test and I had like a 99% in middle school. And I was like, 99%. And my dad looked at it, he was like, it's not 100. But and I was what?
That was my family.
Right?
I feel you.
So I feel like they always just expected
They'd be like,
greatness.
What did you miss? What was that one question that you missed?
So they definitely like saw greatness, expected greatness. They would tell me like, you're going to be the one to make it out. And so it was always just like, of course I'm going to go to LSU and I'm going to get a scholarship and I'm going to leave you guys. And I studied African American studies. So that's also like, you can't do that in South Dakota. Like it's not offered as a major. Some of the schools it has as a minor or like maybe a course or two, but to have a full like bachelor's concentration in it, I was like, I have to kind of leave the Midwest for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so LSU became my way out.
Let's talk about LSU.
Sure. Yeah. LSU, I love what it brought for me. And like, I met like the best friends of my life. We actually met like move-in day and we're still friends.
Like I had the same story.
To this day.
I met all my best friends from college like the first week of freshman year.
Right. So yeah, it was like my first time experiencing like true deep friendship. It was my first time being like truly surrounded by Black community. It was my first time being truly like accepted and embraced as a queer person. It was me finding my footing as an artist, me actually being like seen as an academic. Like I always felt like an academic, but again, I went to a school where no one really believed I could do anything or like took me seriously. And so then to switch to college level professors telling me like, no, you're this is a great paper. this is highly advanced. I was like, oh, my words of affirmation was very much, I received that.
Why LSU?
I don't remember. I remember like in high school being like dead set on it, but I can't actually remember what, like when I learned about LSU or anything. Like no one in my family really does like football or like there was never, LSU was not my radar until like junior or senior year. And then for some reason I just latched on, but I knew I wanted to live in the South. That was like the first starting point, like absolutely in the South. And then very strongly Louisiana. And I just always had this like pull to Louisiana. And my mom jokes it's from watching Princess and the Frog as a kid. But I really did watch and be like, no, I am Tiana. I want to be Tiana.
That's a great movie.
It is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just had this like love for Louisiana, even though I hadn't been there. And then I was lucky enough to get to visit when I was a senior. And it just like solidified. I was like, I need to be here.
Okay, I want to get to Kaya's kitchen soon. First,
Yes.
I want to do just some fun getting to know you type questions.
Okay.
So, what's your favorite food?
Oh, chicken roti, like a curry chicken roti.
Ooh. And what do you eat for breakfast?
A lot of times, I actually really like having lentils and eggs for breakfast, or like overnight oats.
You're legit the first person I've ever met who has lentils for breakfast.
Yeah, it's not super common in America, I would
so
say.
So healthy.
Yeah, like when I go to St. Vincent, that's where my dad's side of the family is
like
from.
My cholesterol just dropped hearing that you have lentils for breakfast.
Like a common breakfast we would have would be like some type of lentil situation, a salad, maybe some fish, and that would be breakfast. And you just feel like you just ready to live life versus a lot of times
you know what it sounds like is it sounds clean.
It does.
Yeah.
And a lot of like American breakfast, you have breakfast and then you want to take a nap.
Yep.
And I do too many things. I can't feel like I need to take a nap. So
yeah,
that's my breakfast.
What kind of car do you drive?
A Mazda. I love her to death.
Does she have a name?
The Mazda.
Okay.
One of my friends named it and I forgot what they named it. My old car had a name. But yeah, it's a Mazda CX-5, a little mom car. I got it during, I think 2021, 2020.
I heard you like to sing in the car.
I do like to sing in the car.
What do you sing in the car?
Right now it's Doechii.
Okay.
I love Doechii. Like I know Nissan Altima front to back. Like
hit us with a few lines?
No,
okay.
but I love Doechii. She was my top played artist on Spotify this year. Or I do like the Broadway show tunes, but that's more like road tripping. Maybe not just going to work.
What are we singing on the long road trip together?
We are singing Les Mis.
Okay.
Of course.
One more day for the storm.
No.
Okay, all right. What do you
Now, I can't sing.
Oh.
So I will sing by myself in my car. But I have like the worst stage fright when it comes to singing.
Okay.
I remember when I was a kid, I auditioned for a play because I love plays. And then I get up there and they told me to sing Happy Birthday. And I literally just started laughing. And I was like, I was so nervous. I'm just like, And then I was like, can I start over? And they're like, no. And I was like,
Hey, me again. This week, something awesome happened. For the first time, I got a comment on one of my videos from somebody I didn't already know. That's right. As near as I can tell, Matthew R. is a stranger who just found us on the internet. First of all, Matthew, if you're out there, who are you? How'd you find us? Inquiring minds want to know. Second, in case it's not abundantly clear, this podcast is just getting off the ground. Right now, it's mostly friends and family. So if you could take a minute to pound that like button, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment, gosh, that would make my day. You could even send it to that one friend where you've been meaning to text them, but it's been a minute and you don't really know what to say. Just a thought. Okay, back to the interview.
What is something that you're proud of accomplishing? I got one.
go ahead.
How about Kaya's kitchen?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like sometimes I get overwhelmed by like how great it is, but then also like, is this really happening? But then also like, can I handle this? And I tend to feel like I see all the things I want to do. Like with Kaya's Kitchen, I see all like the people I want to feed and like the places I could see it go and like the amount that I wish I could help people if I had the resources. And then I feel I'm so far from that sometimes I feel like, am I really helping? But I know I'm helping. So it's like, that's where my hesitancy comes from. But I am actually very proud of Kaya's Kitchen. But I think the question being like, proud of accomplishing, I don't think I've accomplished it yet.
Okay. I mean, it's so relatable to me that you see what it could be and you have all these big plans. And so, but when you were introduced to me, they were like, there was this 24-year-old person who works 3 jobs and also in her abundant free time manages to cook food for people who need it on a regular basis and brings the community together around that.
Yeah.
And just zooming out, I think even if it's not everything that you always wanted it to be, it's still it's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, I am very, very proud of that. It's definitely could not be possible without my volunteers. Like definitely not at all. Even like when I first started, I had only really cooked, for a family setting, or I was doing meal prepping at the time. So maybe like one person would reach out to me, but I had never been like, let's cook for 60 people. And so when I first started doing that, there was a lot of trial and error, and down to one of the girls, Brenda, who was helping me, she actually used to be a chef. And we kind of flipped to where now she's a teacher. And then I started as a teacher and now I'm getting into culinary things. And she was like, don't use that pot for this. Like you need a different pot. Like she was kind of helping me with the more practical things. And I was like, oh, okay. So there was a lot of learning. I was definitely surprised by how many people showed up to help, like both in terms of donations. We've received, I think our total right now is close to $4,000 since August. That's insane.
$4,000. Okay, wow.
US dollars.
Wow. So it's like 4,000 cans, or what are we talking about here?
Dollars.
Wow.
So that was crazy because it started literally just from me posting on social media being like, well, I'm going to go cook if anyone wants to help me. And now we had that. And so it's pretty much...
So pretend I've never heard of it.
Okay, yeah.
Tell me, what is Kaya's Kitchen?
So, Kaya's Kitchen, there's like 3 sides of it. Like, if you look at the Kaya's Kitchen Instagram page, right, you'll see 3 different avenues of things where you'll see me just like cooking, like in Kaya's Kitchen.
Here we are.
You'll see like what I make for breakfast and, just me posting my little things as I'm learning. And then you'll see the donation side of things. And so that started with free meal days. And so again, that came from me being like, I want to bring food to people. It's time. And yes, we can bring like food items and there's food pantries and there's all these things, but then that doesn't really fully support the people that can't cook for whatever reason. Either they're unhoused, they don't have access to a kitchen. I know for me growing up, there was one point that like our stove was broken. That's very real. And stoves are expensive to get a new one or to fix. There's people that are working crazy hours and they don't have time. There's people that don't know how to cook. There's people that are disabled in some way. There's people going through a mental health crisis. Like there's all these reasons that someone wouldn't be able to get up and cook for themselves. And so I wanted to help that. I wanted to help that problem. And so the free meal days, the thing that I was very, very determined on is I'm not giving food that I would not enjoyably eat myself. Like I'm not. And we grew up kind of relying on the food pantry ourselves at certain times in my childhood. And after school programs, there was like after school backpack program that on Fridays, you got like a plastic sack full of donated snack items. 90% of them would be disgusting and expired and nasty and nobody wants that. And so just because we hungry, we still was like, I'm not eating that.
Yeah.
I'm not eating that. And so we would like scrounge through and find like the 3 good things that we could eat. And that would be like our highlight of our week, me and my brother. Like we would walk home with our backpacks and we would sit down and sort through the snack bags and we would watch PBS. And by the time my parents got home, the snacks are gone. So it's like, it was kind of like, it wasn't actually helpful, even though it was, it was helpful, but it could have been more. But the time that...
I mean, probably all the snacks were like ultra processed and you were throwing out most of them. Yeah. It was like, this is not working.
It's not. And the time that in like contrast really helped me, there was one time that my mom was sick. We still don't really know what was going on, but it was something with like arthritis and nerves that pretty much her whole body like locked up for, I want to say it was like a good few weeks. Like she couldn't go to work. She couldn't really get out of bed. And we didn't know what was going on. And so she definitely couldn't be up and cooking for us. And one of my friends, her mom, cooked the dinner for us and brought it to the house. And, like no questions asked, just like brought us dinner. And she was also an amazing cook. And that was like a big moment. And then there was another time that someone brought us groceries, and that was really fun and exciting. Like I just remember like our living room being like full of groceries, and we had like, we would eat pretty healthy in the house too, so there were certain things we were like not allowed to get. So like I remember there being those Reese's Puff cereal. We're like, yes, the cereal from the commercials. Yeah. So I have those memories from my childhood, and so for Kaya's Kitchen, it's like it has to be that and only that. It can't be like, ooh, let me go through my cupboard and see what things I don't want to have, and you can have it just because. And I remember another memory driving as a kid. We were in the car with my mom, and we had those same after school like snack packs. And we drove by someone that had a sign that he was asking for some help with like food or money or anything that we could help with. And so my mom had us go through our bags and pick out some things to give to him. And one of the things we had was like a bag of peanuts or something. And so we showed him like we had like some jerky, some peanuts, whatever. And he took the jerky and something else. And then he gave back the peanuts and was like, I don't want peanuts, or like, I don't like peanuts. Right. And we were like, okay, cool. Have a good day. Goodbye. And we're like, this must have been either elementary or middle school. That's when we had the bags, but I can't remember. And we drive off and me and my brother are like, why wouldn't he take them too? Like, if you're hungry, why wouldn't you take them? And my mom, like, I still remember this. My mom, like, turned and she was like, did you want to eat the peanuts? And I was like, no. And she was like, just because you're hungry doesn't mean you're going to just eat things that you don't eat.
That's beautiful.
And even though we were kids receiving the snack lunch ourselves, like, when you're a kid, you don't have the same grasp of, like, oh, why was our name called down to the office, but like nobody else in class? Like things like that. And just now as like an adult, knowing we were much closer to his situation than, some rich person's situation. And so that's kind of what Kaya's Kitchen is. It's like, I want to help in those ways.
One of my favorite things about Kaya's Kitchen is the philosophy behind it. And you were kind of getting at it just now, but like if you had to talk about the philosophy of Kaya's Kitchen, what is it?
The philosophy is that everybody deserves healthy, delicious food. Like, period. That's it. There's no questions asked about that. Down from when I was a teacher, working with the little ones and seeing their school lunch being disgusting, things I wouldn't eat, and then working in prison reform in Louisiana and advocating for incarcerated people to have edible food. Like in the South, a lot of prisons, they were serving raw meats, things that you can't eat, and not accounting for if this person has celiac disease, like all types of things. That's something that I'm really passionate about. Everybody deserves to eat. Nobody should be hungry. No kid should be hungry, especially because the people that are most affected by food insecurity are low-income people, Black people, and children. So specifically, low-income Black children are not getting food. And so that's how I feel with Kaya's Kitchen. And the philosophy is like, if someone reaches out to me and they're like, hey, I hear you're doing this, I could use some help, it's no questions asked. Like, I don't need to know. I'm not going to question you and be like, well, do you qualify and apply for this? Like, no, if you say you need help, you need help. Yep. And so some of the people they might only need help once a month when they're between those 2 checks and rent just came out and like they're in that space, and some people need help every week. And you know, it just kind of depends on their situation. And again, it's no questions asked. And if I say what you need and you say you need the organic thing, okay. Because who am I to say
That's
like
gonna make
no?
me cry. That's so beautiful.
Thank you. So yeah, I do feel proud of that. I do feel inspired by that, and I feel like I'm ready to do some more.
If people want to help out, what can they do? Where should they go?
Well, if you look up Kaya's Kitchen, Kaya, that's how you spell my name. You can find our Instagram and our link tree and all that stuff, and you can also find the GoFundMe. I think if you look up like Kaya's Kitchen GoFundMe, it should come up.
So I tried this. There's a restaurant in New Jersey called Kaya's Kitchen.
I saw, yeah.
So you should
look Memphis.
Kaya's Kitchen Memphis.
Yeah,
is the way
yeah.
to find it.
Yeah. And maybe I can give you the link and you can put it in your description.
I sure will.
That would be
happily
cool.
do that. What is something that you've been feeling grateful for?
My girlfriend, Oasis. Oh. Yes, I love her. We've been together like almost 3 years, and I feel like a big part of when people see all the things I'm doing and they're like, how are you doing it all? And I'm like, I am not. Like, my girlfriend does half of it. Okay. And so like she will get my bath ready and help with dinner, and like, so you know, I'm leaving on this road trip after we get done talking, and it was like I had to go get my hair done, then I had to go to work, then I had to do this, and so while I'm doing this, she took my car and got my oil changed because I needed one real bad. So just things like that, like she really helps hold me together. She also helps me a lot, like keeping my focus. I really, really try to be positive. I really try not to complain too much, like as like a personal value. I feel like it's not helping me. But I really try to speak positively. I feel like our words have a lot of power. And at the same time, I'm human and I have my low moments and I have my moments of hopelessness and fatigue and like wanting to give up and wanting to quit and wanting to like, and even with Kaya's Kitchen moments, there's been actually many moments that I've been like, I don't think I'm helping people. Maybe I should just stop. Maybe I should maybe this is as far as we can take Kaya's Kitchen. And every time I have those thoughts or feelings, like she's really the one to ground me and like, these are your values. This is what God is doing for you. And this is what I'm here to help you with. And we can push forward. Like, when I say holding me down, that woman holds me down. And 2, I feel like when I have those moments, God also steps in and does something to where I'm like, okay, like I'll be like, maybe this is as far as Kaya's Kitchen goes. And then someone sends us $300. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Or someone asked me to be on their podcast.
Oh my gosh.
And you know, things like that happen. And so, yes, Oasis she helps me with everything. And even with Kaya's Kitchen, like even when we had this gorgeous place, I was in this teeny tiny apartment in this teeny tiny kitchen, like how the floor is separated. We were in this space. And that's when I first started taking meal prep orders. And I still was kind of like not that used to cooking in large quantities or for other people. And she was there right with me, like stirring the whatever and packing up the food and like right hand man for sure. Right yes, you're not going nowhere.
Let's talk about the election.
Let's do it.
Who'd you vote for?
So let me tell you, I didn't get to vote because voter suppression. I don't know if it was intentional, but I had to send in my absentee ballot because I'm still registered in South Dakota. And I didn't receive my ballot in the mail until after the results had been posted.
What?
Yeah. So it was just kind of like, well, I didn't get to vote, but I would have voted for Harris.
So I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about what you just said, but I'm just gonna tell me about yours.
Tell me your thoughts and feelings.
I think that we have politicized a lot of things in this country that should not be politicized. I think that people have figured out that certain groups tend to vote in a certain way, and they will include them or exclude them based on who they think they might vote for. And that seems wrong to me. That's my thoughts and feelings.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. That's why I'm like, I can't say 100% certain that they saw my name and they were like, she doesn't get to vote. But it's also like, even me being in Memphis, like they don't really want Memphis as a whole to be voting.
Yep.
You know,
But
so
even absentee ballots as a whole tend to, I think, go one way versus another.
right.
So it's like, your state, depending on the way it tends to lean and the way the state government is, could include or exclude absentee ballots based on that, which seems wrong either way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's pretend that you had been able to vote for Harris. Talk to me about why you chose Harris.
Harris to me was not my ideal candidate by any means. But also she wasn't the worst candidate to me. And I don't like the lesser of two evils thing, but I did feel like a strong compelled to vote. I knew I wasn't voting for Trump. There were a few independent candidates that I was definitely looking at, but I feel like I got kind of discouraged from voting independent, just because there's a lot of sentiment of like, that's a throwaway vote, or like you practically didn't vote, or you're wasting votes. And so I actually, even going into voting, like if I would have had a chance to vote, I can't say 100% certain I would have voted for Harris or one of the other independent candidates. And I don't know. But I do think I would have ended up with Harris just because, again, she seemed more likely, and I knew it was going to be close. And so, or I thought it was going to be close. But,
I mean, what I hear you saying, and I've heard a lot of people say, is not thrilled with the options.
no. So we did really like Miriam Williamson, and then she dropped out, and then Witt was back in, and then I think she dropped out again. I can't remember if she was ever officially on the ballot, because I never got to see my ballot. I actually never opened the envelope. I was so mad. I was like, forget this. But I had it up until yesterday. I just threw it away. I was sorting through my closet. Anyways, not the point. But
Is it in the recycle bin? We could go get it.
No, it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not thrilled. I feel like things that our society right now sees as very like progressive and ahead of its time, to me seems like the bottom standard.
Duh.
And I think a lot of people feel that way. But it's like, why is saying we should look after our environment radical? Why is saying that we should have healthcare radical? Why is saying that children should not go hungry radical? That's kind of where my frustration lies. It's just, what are we doing?
And the three things you just said, healthcare, environment, childcare, and nutrition, is really on nobody's radar.
That's what I'm saying. So that's where I felt like watching the conversations. It's like, what are we talking about? What are we doing?
It felt like a non-conversation, right? And okay, when you think about how we talk about politics, if you're going to give us a grade, what grade do you give us?
Wait, a grade for how we talk about
politics? The political discourse in the U.S. When we talk about it in the news or on social media, even in person to person.
I feel like a D-.
D-.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're being generous.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I was trying to be generous. I was like, F feels kind of harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I feel disappointed is like the word that I have for it. A lot of times looking at the news, I see just fluff. I see like opinion journalism, and I think that has its place, absolutely. And also there's a time for like, just tell us the facts and tell us what's going on. And I feel like there's a lot of like swaying. Like, I don't feel that one, and not journalism, talk show, opinion channel, but like news channel should be so drastically different than another in terms of how they're reporting the same exact events and things. And so that's where my frustration lies. I also feel very mixed about so much of our news coming from social media and coming from like an uninformed place, coming from a biased place, coming from very short snips. Some things that works, some things shouldn't be zeroed down to a 7-second video. I feel a lot of frustration surrounding conversations on Palestine and a lack of empathy in some places, and then anger in some places that I understand, and I also don't always know what to do with, and I don't know how to help. And then I see very little like, what do we actually do to help? Because no one really knows, so we're all kind of in the same place. So that's kind of what I see with everything. Like, you're either over here and we're upset, or you're over here and you don't care. And then there's like in that middle of like, I am upset and I have to live my regular life and I want to help, but I don't know how. And so that's even kind of where Kaya's Kitchen started for me too. It's like, there's so many things I can't do, but the one thing I can do is feed people. And that's very political to me. And it's just, I wish everyone would find something that they can't do, because I feel like if we each started doing something we could do, then all of a sudden things would open up. Like I just read this, it's the political biography of Angela Davis, and she said something of like, when you let go of yourself as an individual, that's when, like politically, that's when you actually benefit as an individual politically, because the individual, like you let go of that, so then you're thinking about your community, and then by helping your community, you're helping yourself because you are a part of the community, and just things like that. I wish we would tap more into.
Every single person I've talked to has said, I'm frustrated. This is not going well. Our politics is not going well. The way we talk about it is not going well. And I think there also is this sense of, I don't know what to do. And what I admire about you is that you actually did something, right? You started Kaya's Kitchen. But for people who feel stuck, which is maybe everybody, what prescription or what advice would you give?
I would say to talk to your neighbors. Like, it seems so simple, but it's so big. So many of us feel alone and isolated. Part of that's from social media. Part of that's from busy work schedules. Like, modern life is very isolating. American culture is very individual. And so people are lonely. Everybody is. And so I feel like we should all know our neighbors or speak to our neighbors. I think that is the only way to form community. That's the only way to, when you have someone like physically next to you that knows to look out for you, there's a different sense of, again, community, of safety. Like my neighbors, I know them by name. The ladies across the street from me, the folks that live above them, the ladies in my house, the people over here, the people over here. And I've spoken to each of them. I've bringing them food at different times. They come and plant our flowers sometimes. We go pet their dog, things like that. And that's not always possible, because my neighborhood before, unfortunately, my neighbors, it was not as communal of a feeling. It was mainly
here
like,
in Memphis.
Yeah, it was mainly like college men specifically.
Okay.
And I didn't feel the most comfortable there, but I still spoke to them when there was time for that. So I also know, like, take that with a grain of salt. But if we're looking out for the people, let me rephrase. If we're not looking out for the people that live next to us on our block, how do we expect to look out for the people farther away and the people in our like? How do we look out for the whole country if we're not even looking out for our neighbor? Like, that's kind of how I feel.
That's well said.
You know?
So I feel like so much of politics in the media seems like it's trying to push us apart. And I feel like those connections, those very local connections of you and your neighbor, is kind of all that's holding us together. I got a big one for you.
Yes.
Kaya, what is America?
I feel like America is like, you know, when you see little kids and they're like really trying to do something that's either like they're doing it wrong, or they might get hurt, or they're just you can see as the adult, like, this is not what you should be doing, but they're very set on figuring it out themselves. And like, no, I will put my shoes on the wrong foot, or I will, you know, that's how I see America. It's a very young country compared to a lot of other countries, and it's also very stubborn in terms of like, our way is the best way and we have nothing to change and we are great. But then there's other countries who have been here so much longer than us, and they are wise in their years compared to us. Like, we are that 7-year-old, and these countries are 80 years old, and they're trying to tell us, hey, I went through that too, and here's a way out of it. And we're like, no, I know what I'm doing. That's how I see America.
What do you want it to be?
I don't know. I want it to be a country that values its people's well-being above everything, and it doesn't seem to be that. I want it to be a country that values the global health above everything, and it doesn't seem to be that.
You mean the environment?
The environment, but also like other countries. I don't think as countries we should just like care about ourselves. Like we should care about how our actions affect everybody. And this is also like someone who has family in multiple countries. Like that doesn't make sense to me to be like, well, forget about them and we're the best. And then also because like we are on the same shared earth, and even like with folks trying to go to space right now, oh my God. It's like, what are we doing? So I wish it was a country that cared about like the future generations, that cared about the health of the earth that we're all sharing, that cared about the well-being of its citizens. Like, how can we be a country that doesn't have accessible healthcare? And not even doesn't have accessible healthcare, but has places like Cancer Alley that we talked about earlier that are intentionally causing health crisis on certain populations. Like, that seems so far away from this like ideal country and world that I see, but that we see other countries doing. And so that's where I see that like us being the little kid who thinks we know what we're doing, but then this wise country and adult being like, what are you doing? You're about to fall off that chair.
Yikes.
Like, that's what is America to you?
I think there is the promise of America, and then there's kind of where we are on the way to that promise, in my mind. I think when America is working well, it's a place where people can find their opportunity to be happy and healthy and free, and where people get along, even if they don't agree on everything. I think where we are is growing pains. I think, to your point, we have a lot of experiments that we tried early on in the Republic, and we're kind of seeing how they're working out and asking ourselves, like, is this what we want? Is this who we want to be? Is this the direction we want to go? And I think, maybe for a lot of people, it's like, oh, we need to calibrate a little. We need to course correct. That's what America is. For me, it's a very early answer, and that's kind of the whole point of this year.
I know, that's what I wanted to ask you now, before you set off.
Yeah. What's giving you hope?
Definitely the kids that I work with. The kids today are so ready to empathize, if that's the word I could describe. It's like, for example, I'm teaching gymnastics. I have a group of 5 to 7 year olds, and it's some new kids in the class. It's a new group. They're still kind of getting to know each other, and we're teaching. I'm like, okay, girls, come this way. Or what did I say? I think I was like boys and girls or something. One of the kids says, "Oh, I'm not a boy. I'm a girl." And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Sorry, didn't know that. We're good. And we move on. Then if a new coach comes in or a new teacher comes in and the same thing happens, the kids are like, that's a girl. And we're like, okay. Or I have kids be like, I'm using they, them pronouns. And then they switch, I'm using she, her pronouns. And we're just all like, okay. And the other kids, they pick it up so quick. It's not, well, I don't get that, so I'm not going to do that. It's not, that's weird to me, so I'm going to not talk to you. They literally are just like, they just accept each other how they are.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I love how the kids today are a lot more firm in who they are and like bold enough to let people who they are than even people my age. Like my younger sister came out before I did.
Wow.
So, I just feel like the young people, they're just ready.
When I see that, part of me is like, thank God, like finally, like 20 years of my life of anguish and angst. It's just like fast forward through all that.
And even the fact that where we are right now, as frustrating as it is in a lot of ways, and it's very valid, it's still such progress from before. I do kind of hesitate towards being like, the world is burning and this is the worst it's ever been. It's like we have rights right now that we didn't have before. Granted, some of them are getting threatened right now.
Yeah.
But like, I can't not acknowledge certain privileges that I had that people fought and were killed over me having as a queer Black woman in the South. Like, I can't just be like, oh, well, that was all for nothing. Like, no, like, this is real, and we have to keep pushing, because they felt that way that we feel right now. You know? And so I had a conversation with my students. It was actually after the election. We had this is for my middle school, high school, not the little ones. And we had a conversation on how they were feeling, kind of what they were hearing from the adults around them. And I was, kind of hearing what they were saying, and I was like, it's totally normal and okay for you to be feeling angry right now and even hopeless right now. All that's okay. But we can't sit in that too long. I mean, you can sit in the anger forever if you want to, but that hopeless part, it's like we have to take that and do something about it. And we have to, again, do what we can. We have to care about we have to find whatever it is you care about. We can't fight every cause, every person can. But if you decide you really want to advocate for the environment, and I decide I really want to advocate for food, and you decide you really want to advocate for children, and then we all come together and everybody's advocating for something.
That's the hope.
That's the hope. And we're acting on it too, and not just...
And if everybody does their little piece, then the collective impact of that hopefully will be huge.
Exactly. Yeah. Because... Again, even though I was feeling like, oh, am I doing enough? It's like me feeding one person is something.
You're doing a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I feel with the young kids. I just hope they don't get discouraged in the way that I see a lot of adults discouraged. And I feel like a lot of adults almost like this throw in the towel sentiment of like, well, the world is burning and that's all we can do. And it's like, okay, are we going to stand and watch the fire burning and like complain about how big it is, or can we at least take out this little part and like maybe you have more hoses than me so you can get this part? What are we doing? I see people who care a lot, but they just have no idea what to do. And that was me. I mean, like, I didn't know what to do, which is why I'm here, but I think if people had a better sense of how to engage or that they could make a difference, I think they would. I think so too.
Yeah.
I feel like anyone who feels that way should bring their neighbors some food and see what happens.
I love that. Well, best of luck with the close kept secret.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for this conversation.
Yes, thank you. I was excited you thought of me, so.
Well, I'm excited we did it. Yeah, thank you, Kaya.
Thank you.
Life can be confusing and difficult for a 24-year-old in America, especially if you happen to be a queer Black woman living far from home, working 3 different jobs. But somehow, in the midst of everything, Kaya is managing to build community with her neighbors, build a beautiful life with her girlfriend, and cook healthy, delicious food for people who need it. As Tiana's dad said in The Princess and the Frog, you know the thing about good food? It brings folks from all walks of life together. It warms them right up and puts little smiles on their faces. Thank you, Kaya. And for everybody else, if you want to support the great work Kaya is doing, I've dropped a link to her GoFundMe down in the show notes. Okay, story time. Last week, I went to get my hair cut in Memphis. I showed the barber a photo of the fade I wanted to get, and I said, "Can you do this?" To his credit, he was honest. He said, no, that kind of fade was not in his wheelhouse. But if you can't tell, the whole haircut situation is getting pretty urgent. Here's my question. Do you know an amazing barber in Gainesville? Somebody who could give me the kind of fade I just flashed up on the screen? If so, you're a lifesaver. Please email me at whatisamericapodcast@gmail.com. If you're trying to stay connected and come along for the journey, the best thing you can do is sign up for our newsletter. It's basically my shower thoughts on the journey, as well as links to the most recent podcast episode. Go to whatisamericapodcast.com and enter your email. If you're trying to follow me on social, I'm at What is America Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Finally, if the haircut situation is too much for you and you really just want to listen, you can find the audio edition of this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Say It With Me, wherever you get your podcasts. Before I get out of here, I want to say thank you to somebody who saved my butt this week. Travis Wood is my college roommate and one of my closest friends. When I flew from San Francisco to Memphis, I accidentally left all my recording equipment. Oops. Travis lent me his whole setup, mics, tripods, camera, the whole deal. Travis, thank you for being an amazing friend who's also a talented filmmaker. Boldly go. Next week is another week, and I'm thinking about taking some time to process everything I learned in Memphis. Until then, I want to leave you with the Gandhi quote that launched this whole crazy adventure. The act may seem small, but it's important that you do it. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.